Hey strangers, welcome to another episode of the Strange Sessions. I'm Krista. With me is Kurt. And that's all I got. How you doing, Kurt?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
We were laughing at because we were trying to be quiet, getting ready to record, and my stomach made like a synthesizer sound.
Yeah, it's taking on
really
new
weird.
forms every time we get
like
together.
a Moog synthesizer.
What's a Moog synthesizer?
A Moog is the Jamie, the one that did our intro music and outro music, could tell you. It's like an old 60s, 70s sounding.
That's what it sounded
synthesizer.
like.
It did.
Yeah, that's
it did.
funny. Good times. He should loop that into one of our.
Loop that into our music.
Great. What should we start with?
Shoutouts. Some shoutouts to our newest strangers, and those are Brittany Glann, who I think was a stranger before and reapplied.
Yeah,
so
that
I don't know
name
if something
is familiar.
happened. John Doucette, which also sounds familiar.
I think that's Coleman's brother or dad.
Oh,
that's
yes,
his dad.
yes.
What's up, John?
Amanda Beth Elledge, Bethany Thornburg, Katie Lott, Michelle Spack, and Morgan Ambrosius, which is a really cool last name. So thank you guys so much for joining the strangers.
It makes me think of that salad, Ambrosia salad.
Ambrosia salad. It
Yeah.
makes me think of the 70s soft rock band Ambrosia.
Nice.
That's
welcome,
my
you
genre of
strangers.
music. Thank you guys so much for joining. Housekeeping?
Yeah. I was going to read. I'll start with the positive.
Oh, before you start, I just want to say I told a couple people we were going to read their emails and stuff, but I feel like this might be a longer episode. So what I think we're going to do, next episode, I believe my brother Corey is going to be joining us to do a mini mystery. So Corey's going to join us, and then maybe after that, we'll do another small one where we can read emails, and I'll consider that like a catch-up episode where we catch up on stuff we wanted to talk about.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Not a listener submission episode,
No.
but just
and I also want to give a huge thank you to my friend Nikki for sending me a
yeah.
huge box of snacks, because she knows my money situation's tight, and I've been getting yelled at work because I don't eat all day because it's been a bad week. I'm just going to say that because if I go more into it, I'm going to cry. So I'm not going to do that.
There's no crying on this
No.
podcast.
And I also want to give a huge thank you to Logan, who sent me crystals, because we got into talking about crystals, because I was on a crystal kick for a while and I bought some crystals. So she sent me some.
So sweet.
And I will say that there was one that I brought to work 2 days, and the 2 days that I brought those to work were good days.
Oh, good.
So,
hey, man.
and
Whatever
I think
works.
it helped. So thank you so much. Seriously.
I'm going to have to bring another chair down here and get the other microphones.
Oh, yeah, for Corey.
We'll put them over here, maybe.
For Corey?
Yeah.
Or, well, yeah,
I think
figure
over
it out.
here. I don't know why. I was going to read a quick little snippet from a listener on Instagram, a stranger named Christopher. And it's just a funny little thing he sent. He said, I was listening to the recent podcast about the phantom chickens of Wisconsin. I waited and the joke was never said. Poultrygeist.
I know. I'm
there,
mad.
I said it.
I am mad at myself for not thinking of Poultrygeist. But
You said, I hope this made you laugh. It 100% did. So thanks,
It did.
Christopher.
It did.
That's funny. Ugh, should I go into the t-shirt debacle of 2021?
I'm trying to think if we have any other housekeeping. Like I said, there's some people that I want to, like Cadence's sister that sent me something. I want to read that.
Oh,
but we're
cool.
going to save that stuff for a catch-up episode.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have
I'm
to.
done with that.
Yeah, like every time after we record, I'm like, oh, I forgot to thank that person, or I forgot to say this, forgot to say that. So we are going to have a catch-up episode coming up. So go right into the t-shirt debacle.
So, yeah, a lot of the strangers on Instagram or Facebook already know that I decided to take a leap of faith and get our toes wet. And I went to an online like merch store and got some designs set up. And I was really excited. Everybody was excited. And we had 3 designs that were ready to go. And people actually did start ordering. And then within like 12 hours, I got an email that said, your account has been deleted for violation of terms and services or something like that. It was like obviously a form email with no details in it. I emailed them immediately asking what we violated and asked, are people going to get refunds? Like, what are you doing to make this right? And I've never heard back from them, by the way. So good news is 2 people got t-shirts. Well, one definitely got a t-shirt. One had a shipping notice, so hopefully they have it now. And one got a refund.
Those are going to be super rare, too,
Yeah, no
because
kidding.
those are the only ones from there.
So that's the next piece of news is that I've already started working with a friend of ours whose family owns a company that makes promotional items. And so I'm going to start with the Toy and Be Tile shirt because it's the only high-res artwork that we have.
Yeah.
Because Krista's not a graphic artist.
No, and
so
also our logo that I made was just literally
a picture with some
a
words
placeholder
on it.
that I just put in there till we came up with something else.
Look cool on a T-shirt, though.
I know, 5 seasons later, and it's still there.
So I'm working on getting a couple other designs together that are high res, but he and I are working together to get at least the Toynbee tile T-shirt. The bummer is that with these websites that are out there, there's no cost up front.
Yeah.
You don't do anything but make a design. They take care of everything else. The downside is that you get like $2 a T-shirt. They get all the profits.
Yeah.
At least this way, I'm supporting a local business and a friend. We do have to pay for everything up front, but we can also actually make some money on these T-shirts so that we can start putting more money into the podcast.
Into the podcast and other merchandise.
Yeah. So I'm excited to start with the Toynbee tile shirt because it's beautiful and so cool and amazing. So so that's the T-shirt debacle.
We were so excited about that. Then the next morning, you emailed me like,
it was so deflating.
It was because
like,
you were super excited about it.
But Kurt, let's be real. How else would we expect it to go for us?
Oh, I know.
This is just how things work out for us.
I know.
So I'm going with someone I know and trust, and that's who made our stickers. So at least we know they'll deliver on what we order.
Yeah.
And anybody who's ordered a mug, you get a free sticker with that. And we do still have mugs available. Again, shoot us an email if you'd like a mug. So cool. I'm done ranting about merchandise.
Okay. Do we have anything else? Any other complaint about the weather? It's not raining yet.
No, it's kind of dark and dreary. Actually, the sun's trying to come out now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's buds on the trees and like. My seedlings now look like actual
I'm impressed
vegetables.
with your seedlings.
I'm
I am
excited.
impressed with your seedlings.
I have spring fever. 100%.
She does.
I can't wait to get out in the garden.
We have? We're going to talk about when I had my spring break. I was off for a week, and I went on a huge found footage horror movie binge.
And then he made me go on a found footage horror movie binge.
And creeped her out.
Totally. In a good way.
Yeah.
Unless I'm lying in bed at night and I have to go to the bathroom.
And it's funny because the one that freaked you out the most was the one that freaked me out the least, which was...
It got into my head. Hell House Inc.
Hell House LLC.
LLC.
Where these people go into this abandoned hotel and make a haunted house.
Like a Halloween haunted house.
And stuff goes haywire.
Stuff goes really weird.
Yeah, that one didn't freak me out as bad as
that. Really messed with me.
The one that freaked me out was... Ganjiam, Haunted Asylum.
Yeah, that was freaky.
And that was one where it wasn't freaky until the last third of the movie where it was like...
You said it was like Silent Hill on
and it
steroids.
Is like Silent Hill.
And there was definitely some Silent Hill. There was some Blair Witch moments in there too.
But the scene where she's like in the room and she's got the camera and there's that thing and
then that was Silent Hill 100%.
She turns the camera and the thing like shuffles into
yes.
So
I just got the chills thinking about it.
That one, I was like...
Well, and it's the kind of thing where it messes with your reality. Like she was running toward one area and when she got in there, she was in a totally different room.
Yeah.
That stuff messes with me.
And then like Krista was saying in Hell House LLC, there was
this
clowns. Scene where...
Can I just say there's clowns and they're not good clowns?
Where the person was sleeping and then they woke up and that girl was sitting by the bed, like not looking at him. Mm-hmm. And then...
He hides under the sheets.
He hides under the sheets for just a little bit and then he pulls the sheets back down and then she's looking at him with these eyes that are really,
like white and weird.
And then he's freaking out and he pulls the sheets over his head again and they just stay under there for the longest time and you just
know what's coming.
You know what's coming as soon as he lowers the sheets.
And still scares the bejesus out of you.
The one that I was really impressed with was Leaving DC.
Yeah.
And it was like one man and there was like one little scene where there was somebody else there where his friend... Her interest was there.
I felt so bad for her.
I know. But what's interesting is that, like I didn't really realize it watching the movie, but he's not a good guy. He's kind of a creep.
Oh, totally.
I kind of didn't get that until
the stuff
because
with the girl.
after she leaves, she freaks out at the sounds in the woods and she leaves. He's like, well, it's not like she was going to touch me anyway.
Yeah, he was totally creepy about that.
But that is how you do an effective found footage movie with one person in one house.
Let's just say it may have inspired some creativity projects that might be coming.
It possibly did. I totally forgot about that.
We'll see.
But yeah, so other than that, do we have anything else?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Probably.
We, things have just been cool. Like that person that somebody joined the group and said that they recommended our podcast to one of their friends, but then their friend already listened to our podcast and loved it.
Funny.
And then the two that were talking from
Idaho,
about how they suggested our podcast to friends, so many friends of theirs, which is awesome. So
yeah, I just feel, I don't know, blessed.
Because doing, you know, and I hate saying it. I hate saying it because I know you and I are not great at this. You know, we have our share of issues and whatnot, but doing this
like
episode,
forgetting entire segments of our show.
Yeah, but like doing this episode, I listened to so many podcasts this week, and some of them are just so bad.
Yeah,
just like so bad.
Ours is bad in like an endearing way.
Yeah, like we're not great by any stretch.
No.
You know, I think we're a fair to middling podcast.
We scrape
but some
by.
of these ones I listened to were like so bad.
And they have a lot of listeners too.
Yeah. So it's just like, anyway, that's my little rant about that. Some of them I couldn't even listen to. I literally had to like, nope, I can't.
Yeah. You have to feel chemistry with the hosts.
You do, but there has to be some semblance of quality
and quality.
and organization, not where there's like somebody is Skyping in and you can barely hear that person.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, because in one of them it was so quiet. Everybody was so quiet. I had to crank my stereo up in my car, my volume up in my car. But then, without warning, they would go to a break where it would. I really think I might have blew my one of my speakers because of that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I am not saying that we are great because we are not. We're okay. So
we're like medium.
Yeah, we're mediocre, and there's nothing wrong with mediocrity.
We're totally fine with that. We have a Hodunk small town podcast.
We do.
That's our shtick.
Speaking of shtick, should we go into our taste tests?
I guess that's a shtick. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So we have a box from Coleman that we need to dip into.
This is the one that you peeked into and got a sneak peek last time.
And then we also we need to keep hacking away at the Norway treats so that they don't go bad.
Those chocolate hearts, I had those gone by the time I got home.
Good.
I literally ate those all the way home.
They're amazing. Okay. All right. I'm just going to reach in and grab.
This is from our good buddy Coleman.
So I think there's 2 of each thing in here.
Okay.
These feel like they're the same thing. Twin Bing.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I've seen these at Fleet Farm, but
Don't
I
they
have
look like retro candy or something.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've seen these at Fleet Farm, but I've always wanted to buy one and I never did. Sugar, peanuts, corn syrup. I can eat all that.
Can you put that back over there? Okay, I'm going to take a picture.
I'm excited because I've always wanted to try these.
Fleet Farm always has the most unique
They
kind
do.
of candy stuff. It's all kind of like old school. I like it.
I think there's 2 Bings in there.
Nutty chocolatey cherry treat.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's cherries in here. Okay.
I am stoked because I've always wanted to try this.
Ooh, they look good. They kind of look like...
It almost looks like a little chocolate muffin.
I can already tell what the texture is, and I like it. I'm going to take a picture.
It's like gritty.
I can smell it.
It smells good.
It smells really good.
It does smell really good.
I'm not going to eat this whole thing. Jim will be finishing this. It does smell really good. Okay, ready?
It does, yep.
Ooh.
That is really good.
I wasn't expecting the cherry
I was not expecting
center.
that either.
That's really good.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's so good.
This is really good. Now I'm glad I know that our Fleet Farm has them so I can buy them.
Wow.
Thank you, Coleman.
I've never had anything like this. It's really good. I love the texture.
I like the cherry. I like the middle.
I just love the texture of the chocolatey, peanutty stuff on the outside.
This is really good.
It's really good. I'm going to give it a 10.
I'm hovering between 9 and 10.
I was too, but I can't think of a reason to give it a 9. So
I can't either. I'm going to give it a 10. Thank you, Coleman.
Yeah, yummy.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
It's not what I was expecting, but I really liked it.
It's delicious.
That's what she said.
Oh, that was delicious. Okay. Something from Norway. You reach in and grab
weird
something.
because we haven't had a bad one yet this season, have we?
You just jinxed us, Kurt.
No,
you're pulling out something.
She would not have sent
flavored
us something
now.
bad.
Probably not. We don't make bad stuff in Norway.
God, there is a lot of stuff in
There's
here.
a ton of stuff in there.
Holy
They just
cannoli!
spit. Well, maybe there's a cannoli in there. That's Italian.
There's something
though,
in
so
a
that'd be weird.
box.
She said that she. Ooh.
Gomp. They're called
Didn't she
gomps.
say she taped together the ones that have hazelnut?
Oh.
Where's that letter? Bear with us, people. Food notes. The candy marked with the pink have the mark of may contain nuts.
Okay.
So Kurt, Eat at your own expense.
Okay.
Eat on your own expense. That's cute. But then she put @ question mark.
Yep.
The things with hazelnuts are taped together for Krista. So this has hazelnuts.
Okay.
So let's pick something different. Because you can't taste
When
it.
Corey is here, you guys can try those.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good idea. I'm so glad she did this.
I
That
am
was
too.
very
Thank you
thoughtful
so
of her.
much. Oh, that's a lot. We're going to hold off on that one until Corey is here. I'm going to get us a small one. Huh.
It says not. English translated knob. They're knobs.
So they're knobs. What are they? They look like little...
Interesting. Little, I don't know, candy. They kind of remind me of like what a sweet tart would look like in teeny tiny form. Okay, let me take a photo. The packaging is so cute. They always have like these little characters on them. Okay. I'm going to gracefully open this bag. Oh, did you see that?
Look at that.
Boom.
Look at you.
Whoop. I'm just going to dump a couple out. That's more than a couple. Here you go.
Nuts.
I don't think there's any danger of these containing nuts.
Nope.
Just saying. I gotta start talking into the microphone.
Oh.
What were you just saying before you took these out?
You'll know as soon as you put them in your mouth.
Oh.
It's the black licorice flavor.
It's totally black licorice flavor. These are like crunchy good and plenties.
They're not bad.
I mean, they're not horrible.
They're like weirdly salty.
Yeah, they are kind of salty. That's interesting.
Huh.
Oh, weird. They do have a salty, like...
Yeah, like salty black licorice candy.
Let's make Corey taste those too.
Corey will like those.
Does he like black licorice?
I think so. I'm weirded out by how salty they are.
Yeah. But good. I love salty and sweet.
Oh, I do too. But it's messing me up because it shouldn't be that salty.
Yeah, I don't love black licorice. I mean, the good and plenties grew on me, but not enough that I want to actually eat, They're there, so sometimes I grab one.
It's like when I was a kid and I used to eat the salt pellets from our water softener.
I don't
Which could explain a lot about
me.
me.
Yeah, that probably explains a lot. I'm giving these like a 6 because they're not vile.
I'm going to give them an 8 because they're interesting.
They're growing on you?
They're growing on me.
It's not one of those things where you can rate it based on does it taste like what it says
I'm
it
totally
tastes
giving
like?
it an 8. I've
They're
come
growing
around to
on you?
liking them. Yes.
They're okay.
Once I got used to the salty sweet.
I like the twin Bing better.
Oh, thank you so much, guys, for
Yeah,
the food.
thank you. We have so many taste tests ahead.
So now we got our
So
sugar
do we have
buzz.
to open that?
Oh, we also have a package I need to open from. We're not sure who.
Oh, yeah. Mystery package. Hopefully there's a note in here.
Hopefully it's not a severed arm.
What's
Oh, it could be a
this?
hand. It could be a hand.
This says Don Hansen around the clock gifts, but we don't know if Don. Oh, it's Idaho.
Wow, we are very. A lot of
Idaho-centric.
synchronicities with Idaho lately.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe we need to go there and see that picnic table.
We should. My uncle does live there, so we'd have a place to stay. Using my ceremonial dagger /
And I like that so many are from Pocatello, which we talked about in the. Uh-oh.
I got a weird smell just came out of here. Okay.
Oh, boy.
It says a little gift from Idaho. Hope you enjoy. Angel. It says,
Oh,
it
it's
is
from Angel.
food.
Let me see.
It's got to be some kind of food. Because it says Idaho Spuds. Or Idaho Spud. Oh. 12-count box of famous Idaho Spud chocolate candy bars. So it's a box of candy bars.
Do you want to try one?
Let's do it.
Because then we can save the rest for one. Thank you so much, Angel.
Wow. I think this is our first Idaho taste test. Yeah, I want to take
Yes,
a picture of
because
the box.
he's.
Oh my gosh.
Hang on. He.
Something weird about maybe it's the box smells funny. Something.
Angel
creamy.
said something. He wrote in the. I can't remember if Angel's a boy or girl.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
they said about that they were sending it that. It was too bad we already did the Idaho one because they were sending us something from Idaho for a taste test.
Oh yeah,
So
that was.
that's what
They
this is.
just mentioned
Yes.
that on Facebook, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
That's that's just fine because we had so many
whole
Idaho
box.
synchronicities lately.
That's crazy. I just can't believe we got a whole entire box of candy bars. Okay.
Okay.
Let's just open one.
Okay.
So are there like potatoes in here? Like, is that why it's like called Idaho Spud?
No, but it does have something in it that I love.
What's that? Corn syrup?
It's very,
I'm just kidding.
a lot of people don't.
What?
Coconut.
Oh, I love coconut.
So do I. Open her up.
Okay.
Ooh, now we're going to be all sugared up.
Very messy over here. Ooh. All right, I'm just going to whack this thing in half. Oh, it's soft. Oh. Your stomach. Oh my God.
As soon as I saw the food, my stomach gurgled.
It's like, it reminds me of the middle of a Three Musketeers.
Yes.
Okay, I got to take a picture of that.
Oh, it smells good.
Okay, ready?
Yep. Oh.
It's marshmallowy.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me a lot of a moon pie.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is good.
This is really good.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to give that a 10. Because that's really good.
That's really, really good. It's like melty good. I feel like I need a trip to the dentist now, but you want to throw that out.
That was a lot of sugar.
Wow, yeah.
Oh.
Nothing but leafy greens for the rest of the day.
Corey's going to have one of those next.
Oh, that's so
next week.
good. I'd give one to Jim, but he hates coconut.
Oh, my God.
He's a monster. Okay.
That was good.
Yeah, that was really good. All right.
Okay, you ready to jump into
I'm ready
today's
for
topic?
the sugar crash. Yes, I'm ready.
Going to start it off with a new segment that might as well be a recurring segment called Kurt Apologizes. So, I had a really bad week. We've ascertained that. So I didn't work on this as much as I wanted to.
Oh, stop. It's going to be a great episode.
It's not bad. There's a lot here. It might be a lengthy episode, but what I did was I bit off more than I could chew because there's basically 3 topics in here that could possibly be an episode on its own.
Okay.
So maybe there's one that I would definitely like to revisit, if nothing else, in a mini mystery. And that would be about underground shelters that we know about now but used to be secret, like Mount Weather, Raven Rock. Phil Schneider alone would be one, but we're going to talk about him. And Dulce Base could probably be a whole one. So we're going to talk about all 3 of them in here. So consider this again an hors d'oeuvre platter where we might revisit these. But I just wanted to get things organized better, and to some of these I don't have citations where I got them from, but I intended to work on it this week and I didn't, so I'm sorry, but there's a lot here. So, all right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So our main story is going to be about DUMBs, D-U-M-Bs, Phil Schneider, and Dulce Base. And this is one that Chad Bonin, one of our listeners, one of my friends, who has been having some health issues, wanted for the longest time.
The Phil Schneider one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we're going to be talking about DUMBs, D-U-M-Bs, which stands for Deep Underground Military Bases. These are underground bases used for military or scientific purposes, and while it's not known how many of them exactly there are, it's speculated that there are over 10,000 of them around the world. And these are ones that you don't know about.
Oh.
When you find out about them, it's believed they're decommissioned and not used anymore.
And moved somewhere else.
Yeah, so from a really good article from DailyOddsAndEnds.com from June 2nd, 2015 called, quote, Right Beneath Your Feet, The Hidden Reality of Deep Underground Military Bases, the article says, quote, The United States has a history of government agencies existing in secret. The National Security Agency, or NSA, was founded in 1952, and its existence was hidden until the mid-1960s. Even more secretive is the National Reconnaissance Office, which was founded in 1960, but remained completely concealed for 30 years. I had never really heard of the National Reconnaissance Office. Recent leaks from Edward Snowden, who we talked about in other podcasts, a former intelligence contractor, have shed light on the black budget world. This is a world full of special access programs, or SAPs, that garnishes trillions of dollars every year to conduct operations the public knows nothing about. These programs do not exist publicly, but they do indeed exist.
Reminds me of like the Bourne Identity.
Yeah, they are better known as deep black programs. A 1997 U.S. Senate report describes them as, quote, so sensitive that they are exempt from standard reporting requirements to Congress. One aspect of these deep black programs is the development of deep underground military bases. Richard Nolan said, quote, the military utility for underground construction is obvious. I recall years ago studying the matter in the context of the American Cold War military strategy. During the 1950s, motivated by a fear of Soviet missiles striking American installation in cities, military planners recognized the value of secure facilities deep underground. So it's no secret that,
Right.
especially with satellites now, where you can look on Google Maps and see. And I don't think I mentioned in this there, but one thing that's interesting is that some of these bases that they did their best to keep 100% secret around the world, like their intelligence, organizations know the layout of the base because a lot of the soldiers had Fitbits or things like that they would go jogging on the base and forget that it's tracking it and like uploading it to the internet. So they would see like routes of roads and stuff like that.
Wow. Who would have thought of that, though?
I know. But some of them, I can't remember which one it was, but it's like an open thing where if somebody knows you, they can go on there and look to see where you ran. Like mine will do that. If I go on my Ice Age trail and use GPS, I can go home and look at exactly where I ran. And I can make it public so anybody could see it.
Oh, funny.
And some of these people did that and forgot about it.
Whoops.
Another reason to have good underground bases.
Yeah.
There are also known underground facilities in existence, and they can go up to several miles underneath the surface. Take, for example, the Swedish underground military facility at Musko. It's a large naval base built underneath a mountain. The hospital alone within this facility holds over 1,000 beds. Musko engineers blasted out 1.5 million cubic meters of stone in order to build it. In 1987, Deputy Director of Engineering and Construction for the United States Army Corps of Engineers, Lloyd A. Dusha, gave a speech at an engineering conference entitled, quote, Underground Facilities for Defense, Experience and Lessons. In the first paragraph of this speech, he states the following, quote, After World War II, political and economic factors changed the underground construction picture and caused a renewed interest to think underground. As a result of this interest, the Corps of Engineers became very involved in the design and construction of some very complex and interesting military bases.
Your dad was in the Corps
Exactly.
of Engineers.
And Corey and I talked about this, that I am wondering now if my dad wasn't involved in a lot of these underground, because like I've mentioned on here, when after he died, Corey and I got his calendar, like his journal of where he was, and he was at, I got out of him. He was at Area 51, but he was at Fort Knox. He spent a ton of time in New Mexico. He was at Dugway in Utah, which is supposedly like the new Area 51. So, and he was a driller.
So when you say that, what kind of drill? This is silly, but I was watching Oak Island, and I'm like, it's not that kind of drill, right? Those huge drills that they put in the ground.
I know what his
like
machine.
A handheld thing?
I know what his machine looked like, and it was like a drill, like he was in a cab of a truck, and it was a drill that came out from underneath. Maybe a smaller
version of what's on Oak Island.
But I'm wondering if that's Corey and I, because Corey still wants to send a Freedom of Information Act to find out. But
so amazing.
After studying this stuff, I'm kind of convinced that that's kind of what he was involved in. Yeah. And we'll get into that with Phil
didn't know
Schneider.
Until he got there what he was doing, kind of thing, right?
Or he knew, but he just couldn't talk that he was helping build these underground military bases.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, as soon as I'm reading this, I'm like, I wonder if that's what Dad was involved with. And then he said in his introduction, I must deviate a little because several of the most interesting facilities that have been designed and constructed by the Corps are highly classified. He then went into a discussion of the Corps' involvement in the 1960s in the construction of the large and elaborate NORAD base built deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. We're going to talk more about that later. This is just a public statement, but you will not find a more significant public admission of these secret underground bases than this one. People speaking is not the only evidence available. There are actual documents obtained by researchers through the Freedom of Information Act that shed more light on the subject and clearly outline plans for the contraction of new underground facilities. The world's most prominent researcher on underground military facilities, in my opinion, Richard Sauter, PhD, told of an interesting story in his book, Hidden in Plain Sight, that I'd like to share with you. In the book, he says, quote, As it happens, after giving a public talk a couple of years ago, I was approached by a man who had been a uniformed member of the United States Navy. We chatted for a while, and when he mentioned that he had spent some time at China Lake, my ears perked up. I asked him if there was an underground facility at China Lake. He said that indeed there is, and that it is impressively large and deep. I asked him if he had ever been in it, and he said that he had, although not to the very deepest levels. I asked him how deep the deepest part extended. He looked at me very soberly and said very quietly, "It goes 1 mile deep." I then asked him what the underground base contains. He said, "Weapons." I responded, "What sort of weaponry?" And he answered without pausing, "Weapons more powerful than nuclear weapons."
Okay.
So there's stuff.
That's freaky.
Uh-huh. And this is
just
all
the
from,
idea of being that far underground is so freaky to me.
Yeah. This is all from that same article.
Okay.
The reality of deep underground military bases is extremely fascinating. There is an enormous amount of evidence that proves their existence. Secret military bases used to be labeled in a conspiracy theory category. Not long ago, the Department of Defense officially declassified the existence of Area 51. We know that the military operates at these defense installations, and it's safe to assume that a number of classified projects go on within them. One that seems to be a common occurrence related to deep underground military facilities are UFOs and extraterrestrials. Dolan shared an experience he had with a politician who was at a deep underground military base. He was briefed on the extraterrestrial reality and said that ETs and UFOs are just the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to information that's concealed from the public. Researcher Timothy Good has been privy to information from a variety of sources, including private ones that discuss a variety of locations around the world for alleged undersea and underground extraterrestrial bases. Abductees and contactees constantly refer to deep underground installations within the planet. Could the extraterrestrial phenomenon be directly related to deep underground military facilities? I've had 2 personal encounters with Canadian military personnel. One of them was a Coast Guard veteran. He personally told me that if I really wanted to know about extraterrestrials, quote, come work with us and then you can ask them for yourself. This is something I'll remember for my entire life. The second one was bizarre. I encountered a senior Canadian Air Force officer, had a short conversation with him and brought up UFOs. He instantly turned around and started walking away from me. About an hour later, in a completely different location, he walked right by me and didn't even look at me, accompanied by 2 men in suits.
Well then.
I just wanted to get across that deep underground military facilities are not a conspiracy. What happens beneath our feet is garnishing trillions of dollars from the black budget for special projects that the majority of the human race knows nothing about. So it's a given that these exist.
Oh, sure.
You know, and I was going to talk more about some of these ones that were secret, but we know about, but I'm going to save that for another episode. But we're going to talk a little bit about Cheyenne Mountain and NORAD. This comes from a July 27th, 2015 article from the denverchannel.com called 13 Secrets of NORAD and Cheyenne Mountain. The article says, quote, during the height of the Cold War in the late 1950s, the government decided to build a hardened command and control center as a defense against long-range Soviet bombers. That facility was built inside Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs. While the facility was occasionally open for tours, that stopped entirely after September 11th, 2001. And obviously, you know what? One of the reasons why it would be in Colorado, because, you know, when this was started, they felt that if an attack happened, it would hit the coasts first. So they wanted something in the center of the country that would be the farthest away from the coasts. When the Cheyenne Mountain facility opened in the late 60s, it was the NORAD Combat Operations Center. The mission was to watch for ballistic missile or air attacks against North America. Over time, the mountain facility began housing other military operations, including the U.S. Strategic Command, U.S. Air Force Space Command, and U.S. Northern Command, or U.S. Northcom. I don't even know what that last one is. In 2006, NORAD and U.S. Northcom moved its main command center to Peterson Air Force Base 15 miles away, and many people thought Cheyenne Mountain had closed. However, Cheyenne Mountain's Deputy Director Stephen Rose said the Cheyenne Mountain complex is still NORAD and U.S. Northcom's alternate command center, and that there are still more than a dozen government and Department of Defense agencies inside, but there are some that he can't publicly name. The bunker lies 2,000 feet underneath Cheyenne Mountain outside Colorado Springs, Colorado. It can be sealed off by 2 giant blast doors made of concrete and steel, each 3.5 feet thick and weighing 23 tons. Those are big doors.
Yeah.
It takes 45 seconds for built-in hydraulic machinery to close the blast doors. If the hydraulics fail, 2 people can close them by hand. One door usually remains shut at all times during the Cold War. Since then, commanders ordered them closed only once, on September 11th. There are 15 buildings inside the mountain, 1 mile inside from the opening and 2,000 feet down from the top of the mountain. Workers can't just walk inside to their offices. They have to take a bus. So that's huge.
Just boggles the mind to think of what kind of logistics and work it took to build this
thing.
thing.
Under and inside a mountain.
Yeah, inside a mountain is what's boggling my mind.
And the office complex inside is made up of 13 3-story buildings and 2 2-story buildings, but this next one boggles my mind. These buildings are all freestanding buildings connected by hallways and ramps inside. The buildings are on more than 1,300 giant springs and built 18 inches away from the rock walls in the mountain so they can move independently if there's an earthquake or a blast.
Wow.
So they're actually like on
Talk
their
about
own shock
engineering.
absorber that if something happens, it's not going to shake and hit the mountain wall
When you
because
said
they're
springs, I thought you meant like water.
No, they're on actual springs. That
Ginormous.
it's like this giant,
Like Wile E. Coyote size
yes.
springs.
Yeah, that it's on all these giant springs so that if it does get hit, it's just going to bounce and not hit the wall.
It's funny to me, but it is.
I know, but it just baffles my mind that they
The foresight
did this
to do that
in the 60s.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
God only knows what they're doing now.
I guess it's the safest place to work.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, virtually any natural disaster, you'd be safe in there.
Yep. The article goes on to say, however, Channel 7 News got a rare tour inside and learned some secrets of the mountain. One of the secrets, Cheyenne Mountain is still open for business. About 350 people work inside the mountains on most weekdays. The number drops to about 120 to 130 on nights and weekends, but there's room for that number to surge much higher in wartime if needed. The workers in Cheyenne Mountain don't have windows with offices because all they would see is a granite wall. However, they do have some perks inside the mountain city, like a workout facility, a spin gym, a hospital, a chapel, convenience stores, and more. There are also 5 lakes inside the mountain. One lake is filled completely with diesel fuel, and it's sealed behind a closed wall. Cheyenne Mountain gets its power from the city of Colorado Springs, but if the complex has to be sealed off, the diesel would be used to power underground generators. The other 4 lakes are water reservoirs like you would see outside. One is used for drinking water for the complex. The other 3 lakes are industrial lakes. The water in the industrial lakes is used during peacetime for firefighting or whatever is needed. In wartime, that lake water could be used as part of a backup heating and cooling system. So, I mean, it's like a complete little city.
Self-sufficient.
Yeah, it's like a self-sufficient. We're going to talk more about but another one that was secret for the longest time is Raven Rock, and that actually has a Starbucks inside of it.
Of course.
Which is...
Because there's a Starbucks on every corner.
Which is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
The Disclosure Wiki states, quote, there are underground bases and facilities all over the place, in cities all around us. There are people that walk into buildings and take elevators that are service elevators that the rest of the public doesn't know about. They go down several more floors than anyone that works in the building knows about, get on an underground train system, and are shuttled to anywhere in the world in a matter of an hour or two where they can work at
Anywhere
these underground...
in the world?
We'll get into that.
Okay.
And these small cities are absolutely spread out all over the place. It also says the DUMBs, deep underground military bases, recycle air from time to time. Ventilating the air out of an underground base makes a trumpet noise, almost like a tornado siren.
Come on.
Some of these trumpet noises people are hearing on a wider scale in the skies are actually coming from venting the air in deep underground military bases.
Sky sounds. That's the episode Jim was on.
That is. So that's a possibility that has
Did that
something
come
to
up
do.
in that episode?
I don't remember. I don't think deep underground military
No.
bases venting, So
Making connections.
Yep. And I don't remember if it was Phil Schneider, but we're going to get into him later. But somebody said that there are at least 4 of these underground bases in every state in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
I just wouldn't imagine Wisconsin having something like that.
I wonder where it would be if we did, because I don't know a lot
we
about
have some military
we do
bases.
but he said that there are at least 4. So say that there are a lot of these bases around the country. You would want an easy way to travel between them. According to the website, not 100% sure how factual this website is, but according to the website reptoids.com, the website says, quote, government whistleblowers and retired military personnel have publicly stated that during their employment, they observed that our government has a massive network of tunnels with supervelocity trains linking secret underground bases. Thomas Costello, we're going to get to him later, the former Dulce Bay security officer, reported to an associate that Dulce had a tube shuttle station linked to several other secret underground bases. At first hearing these statements seems too far out to be true. We've all seen television shows about tunnels, and they always show how expensive, dangerous, and disastrous near-surface tunnel construction can be. So obviously an undertaking such as constructing a massive sci-fi-like network of underground tunnels would take too much money and hundreds of years to build. Not so, say scientists. In 1972, Robert M. Salter, lead scientist with the RAND Corporation. RAND Corporation comes up a lot in conspiracy theories.
It almost sounds like a made-up.
It does. Like
corporation.
on Fringe. What was it? Massive Dynamic was like the corporation on Fringe. Yeah.
Or what is the on what's the video game? They're movies now.
Doom?
No, Mila Jovovich.
Oh, Resident Evil.
Yeah,
like the Umbrella Corporation. Yeah, like the Umbrella
Yeah.
Corporation. Robert M. Salter, lead scientist with the RAND Corporation, announced during an interview with LA Times science writer George Getz that a high-speed system could be built using existing technologies back in 1972. He also stated that the system should be built for economic and environmental reasons. So on August 2nd, 1972, Salter wrote a RAND document numbered P-4874. The publication was titled, quote, The Very High Speed Transit System, or the VHST. The 17-page report detailed the technologies involved, possible attained speeds, aspects of economic and security benefits, and potential routes. This document reported achievable passenger speeds at 14,000 miles an hour.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's a
14,000?
That's a little, I don't know. Even though the National Geographic, History, and Sci-Fi channels have programs exposing the underground cities of ancient civilizations and storage companies, only our imaginations can provide insight into how extensive a national security network of tunnels might be if the Black Operations world were given the green light to begin construction on it. By using conventional rock drilling tunnel boring machines, or TBMs, it would take decades to complete. Whereas using the more advanced TBMs developed by Los Alamos Labs, the construction costs have been sharply reduced, the time required to build tunnels lessened, and the inherent dangers of loose rock tunneling avoided. According to numerous eyewitnesses and former government employees, the system already exists and is currently being used by the shadow government, their black ops forces, plus favored corporate entities. It is said that a direct link from New York City to Los Angeles, California, using these tunnels and technology takes potentially 21 minutes, which is crazy, to go from New York to Los Angeles in 21 minutes.
I just can't even fathom that.
Rumors say the shuttles travel by the use of high-intensity compressed air and are extremely fast. I also hear magnetic, maglev systems, which makes sense because on a magnet you could go crazy fast. On a maglev system. The shuttles travel by use of high-intensity compressed air and are extremely fast. Inflatable airbags inside the shuttle cushion you from the impact of turns. The ride can be sickening enough that every seat has a vacuum-powered chute to capture vomit as soon as you lean into it.
Like G-force stuff happening?
So I don't know if I want to ride on
Sounds
something
terrifying.
that actually has a designated vomit tube.
Right.
But I don't know,
It just sounds a little bit too
But
science
there
fiction.
are pictures of these tunnel boring machines. I mean, these tunnel boring machines exist.
Yeah.
And I think Phil Schneider, we'll get into this,
Yeah.
says that they have special machines that actually liquefy the rock. And because people always say, if they're taking this much rock out of these mountains,
Where are they
putting it? And it uses like a nuclear powered drilling thing that liquefies the rock. And it both liquefies the rock and it leaves like a glassy shell for the tunnel to go through. Wow. So, but I don't know.
This is all news to me. Like I was
there
aware
are
of
people
any
that
of this.
100% say that we have these shuttles that are deep underground from us that are used by the military.
Wow.
This, some people speculated maybe this is what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch, is that there's stuff going on there, that there's some of the sounds and stuff are tunnels underneath there.
Maybe this explains like teleporting.
Some people say that's what the trumpet sound was maybe these tunnels getting dug or the air escaping from them. But we know that there are underground installations. Some of them are fascinating. We're going to be talking about them. There's the one underneath. I can't think of the name of the hotel. The Greenbrier? Is it the Greenbrier? But there's a hotel, I want to say somewhere on the coast, like Virginia, somewhere in that area, where when it was being built, like other contractors came in and there's an entire system built below it that nobody knew about. People have worked there for 30, 40 years and never knew that there was this underground bunker underneath it until it came out. And then it's immediately declassified because it's no longer a secret.
Right.
So that's a fascinating topic, and we'll have that maybe for another mini mystery episode. But they exist. We know these places exist. So the question is, have we gotten so advanced with technology that, and these were built in the 60s, 70s.
Right.
So like I said,
Imagine
God
what we're
only knows
capable
what we
of
can do
now.
now. So we know that there's some of these there. So if there's some of these there, there's got to be tons of them. There's so many of them. And one of the biggest ones is rumored to be below Dulce Base. Dulce. I've always thought this was Dulce, New Mexico.
I thought it was Dulce.
I always thought it
Like
was
Dulce
Dulce.
de leche?
Yeah, I always thought it was Dulce, but apparently it's Dulce.
Okay.
So I might end up saying Dulce. I might end up saying Dulce. I don't know.
The big D.
The big D. Oh boy. But no, it's that is where one of the biggest deep underground military bases is supposed to be.
Dumba.
So Dulce was founded by the Gomez family as a ranching operation. The original name was Agua Dulce, Spanish for fresh water, because of the presence of natural springs that provided good drinking water for the people and their animals. The original homestead was founded in 1877 by Jose Eugenio Gomez. The Jicarilla Apache Reservation was established in 1887 when the Apache people were forced onto a reservation. The Gomez Ranch is currently kept under Manuel Gomez ownership, though surrounded by reservation land. It has a population of about 2,700 people, so it's a small New Mexico town. In the 1970s, a New Mexico State Police officer trooper named Gabe Valdez started documenting a rash of unexplained cattle mutilations in the area. Where some cattle deaths are explainable, Valdez felt that these weren't. In a radio interview, he said, quote, "The evidence that was left there, predators don't leave gas masks, glow sticks, radar chaff. They don't leave that stuff."
Not glow sticks?
They don't leave glow sticks.
They didn't go to a rave first?
No, but there was this weird rash of cattle mutilations in that area. Then, in 1979, Albuquerque businessman Paul Benowitz had his own company, Thunder Scientific, that was located next to Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico. Benowitz began seeing strange lights in the sky over the Air Force Base and became convinced that he had started intercepting electronic communications from alien installations and a spacecraft outside of Albuquerque. By the 1980s, he believed he had discovered a secret underground base beneath the Archuleta Mesa near Dulce that was operated jointly by aliens and by the military. He contacted the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization, or ARPO, about his beliefs, and they basically said he was nuts. So, much later, towards the end of the 80s, former special agent for the U.S. Air Force of Special Investigations, Richard Dodie, and we talked about Richard Dodie before, and I don't remember what episode it was, maybe the Philadelphia Experiment?
I know the name, though.
Yeah. Former special agent for the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, Richard Dodie, claimed that he was tasked with hoaxing documents and feeding false information to UFO researchers, including Benowitz. And UFO researcher William Moore claims that he tried to push Benowitz, who had already been in a mental health facility 3 times due to severe paranoia, into a mental breakdown by feeding him false information about aliens. So, and that's one of the big problems is disinformation.
Right.
When we get into Phil Schneider, is Phil Schneider possibly disinformation? The more that, if they're doing something, the more that they get people to be convinced that there's aliens and stuff there, the more everybody else is going to blow it off.
Totally, yeah.
That's what disinformation is putting like stuff out there that isn't true, and sometimes it's so bizarre and
it discredits
anyone that's even looking into it. But it surprised me because William Moore is kind of a big name in UFO research. Like, I have books that he co-authored, but he says that he was, I don't remember, I think the government wanted him to feed false information because people were getting too close to some of the truth, which wasn't necessarily extraterrestrial, but it might have been military things that we did not want people to know about.
Black Ops stuff.
Yep. According to a June 19th article on Mysterious Universe by Nick Redfern, I love Nick Redfern, there's a chance that Brian and Lauren might be able to get an interview with Nick Redfern on their show, and I would love to chat with Nick Redfern.
Very cool.
Yep, according to a June 19th article on Mysterious Universe by Nick Redfern called, quote, Dulce's Underground Alien Base, Real or Not, he says, quote, more than a decade before Benowitz came to believe the awful rumors of Dulce were true, the U.S. government already had a stake in the area and its surroundings. A contingent from the Atomic Energy Commission headed into town and set up what was called Project Gas Buggy. It was a sub-project of a much bigger project called Plowshare. The plan was to detonate way below ground a small nuclear device as a means to try and extract natural gas. The operation went ahead on December 10th, 1967, and it worked well. The bomb was detonated at a depth more than 4,000 feet below ground.
Oh my God.
Years later, certain figures in the UFO field suggested that the natural gas scenario was a cover for something else. You may already see where this is all going. There is an enduring belief within certain factions of ufology that the nuke was actually used by a panicked government to try and wipe out an alien base and the extraterrestrials said to live deep within it. Even to this day, it is highly illegal to dig in certain areas around Dulce on the orders of the Atomic Energy Commission. So something's going on at Dulce.
Yeah.
And it seems like something has been going on at Dulce base. It's not a, I used to think Dulce was an actual military base, but it's not. Dulce base is this rumored base that is below the town of Dulce. So then we get to Thomas Edwin Costello. TC or Thomas C or Thomas Costello are pseudonyms of an alleged insider of the unconfirmed Dulce base. So this Thomas Costello said that he was asked once if that's his name, and he said, quote, "My name changes when I think someone's asking a question." So it's obviously not his real name. People don't even know if he really existed.
Right.
Obviously, a lot of this is conjecture. A lot of this changes from site to site, depending on what you read. But there was supposedly this Thomas Costello that worked at Dulce base. So an excerpt from the book Cosmic Top Secret, The Deep Dark Secret at Dulce says, quote, "As a high-level security officer at the joint alien U.S. government underground base near Dulce, he had learned of and had seen disturbing things. After much inner conflict, he decided to desert the facility and to take various items with him. Using a small camera, he took over 30 photos of areas within a multi-level complex. He collected documents and removed a security videotape from the control center which showed various security camera views of the hallways, lab, aliens, and U.S. government personnel to take with him. Then, by shutting off the alarm and camera system in one of the over 100 exits to the surface, he left the facility with the photos, videos, and documents. The originals were hidden after 5 sets of copies were said to be made. Thomas was ready to go into hiding, but when he went to pick up his wife and young son, he found a van and government agents waiting inside.
Oh boy.
His wife and child had been kidnapped. He had been betrayed by a fellow worker. The agents wanted what Thomas had taken from the facility in order to get his wife and son back. When it became apparent to him that they would most likely be used in biological experiments and were not going to be returned unharmed, he decided just to head out. He said,
"See ya
later. Good luck."
Check ya.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, so he ditched them and just took off.
Wow.
So that was supposedly, according to the article, that was over 10 years ago. How did Thomas get involved in all this covert intrigue? Thomas, now in his 50s, was in his mid-20s when he received top-secret training in photography at an underground facility in West Virginia. For 7 years, he worked in high security photography in the Air Force. Big difference between high school photography and high security photography.
He's on the yearbook.
He's on the yearbook committee. In 1971, he left and went to work for the Rand Corporation. Rand Corporation in Santa Monica, California. In 1977, he was transferred to the Dulce facility. He bought a home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and worked Monday through Friday. He commuted to work via a tube shuttle system deep underground. At this time, a fellow researcher was working security in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and was privately investigating UFO sightings and animal mutilations. Also investigating Masonic and Wiccan groups in the area.
Sure.
I think you can leave the Wiccan groups alone.
Probably.
I think they're okay.
What's interesting is that the tube system is just a casual sidebar. It's not like the focus of the conversation that he mentions. That's how he traveled.
Oh, yeah. Underground monorail.
Yeah.
Yep. So Thomas had a mutual friend who came to Santa Fe in 1979 to visit both the UFO researcher and Thomas. This visitor later viewed the photos, the videotape, and documents taken from Dulce base. Drawings were made from what was seen and later circulated in the UFO community as the, quote, Dulce papers. Thomas alleges that there were over 18,000 short gray aliens at the Dulce facility and that he saw reptilian humanoids.
18,000? Just like wandering around?
Yeah,
or...
I guess. A colleague had come face...
Like walking down the hall with some coffee and a briefcase? I don't understand.
That's what they were saying. Like one of the podcasts I listened to, because they're supposedly 7-foot tall grays and small grays.
Sure.
You know, and
it's
they said like the small grays are like the worker grays, and it's like, do they have like a little like business casual on and are sitting at a computer drinking coffee? You know, but they said there's supposedly 18,000 short grays at the Dulce facility.
That's a lot.
A colleague had come...
I would consider 8 a lot.
I would too. A colleague had come face to face with a 6-foot tall reptoid which had materialized in his house. This reptoid showed an interest in research maps of New Mexico and Colorado that were on the wall. The maps were full of colored push pins and markers to indicate sites of animal mutilations, caverns, locations of high UFO activity, repeated flight paths, abduction sites, ancient ruins, and suspected alien underground bases. The multi-level facility at Dulce is reported to have a central hub, which is controlled by base security. The security level goes up as one descends to lower levels. Thomas Costello is said to have had an Ultra 7 clearance. He knew of 7 sub-levels, but there may have been many more. Most of the aliens supposedly are on levels 5, 6, and 7, with the alien housing on level 5. The only sign in English was over the tube shuttle station hallway, which read, quote, to Los Alamos. Connections are said to go from Dulce to the Page, Arizona facility, then onto an underground base below Area 51. Tube shuttles go to and from Dulce to facilities below Taos, New Mexico, DeTille, New Mexico, Colorado Springs, Colorado, Creed, Colorado, and then on to Carlsbad, New Mexico. So supposedly there's all these bases with this underground system, aliens working below Dulce. So
making coffee in the break room.
Yeah. Yep.
Burning popcorn in the microwave, probably.
Yep.
Stinking up the joint.
So here's some more about Thomas Costello. He was a young sergeant stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. He got the job as a photographer, which we already talked about.
Every time we do that, I think, ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I'm loving it because I got my McDonald's coffee. So it said that once arriving at Dulce Base, Thomas and several other new recruits attended a mandatory meeting where they were introduced to the, quote, big lie, saying that the human subjects being used for genetic experiments were hopelessly insane and that the research is for medical and humane purposes.
Oh my God.
Beyond that, all questions were to be asked on a need-to-know basis. The briefing ended with several threats of punishment for being caught talking to any of the, quote, insane, or engaging in conversations with others not directly involved with one's current task.
I appreciate them trying to make it sound ethical.
Yeah, exactly. Venturing outside the boundaries of one's own work area without reason was forbidden, and most of all, discussing the existence of the joint alien U.S. government base to any outsider would generate severe and, if necessary, deadly repercussions. Thomas did his job as supervisors demanded. At first, his encounters with actual greys and reptilian beings in the base were exhilarating, but soon he became acutely aware that all was not what it appeared to be. The multi-level facility at Dulce is reported to have a central hub, which I mentioned, that's controlled by base security. Most of the aliens are supposedly on levels 5, 6, and 7, with alien housing on level 5. So the structure of the Dulce base is supposedly level 1, general security and communications. That's the top level.
Okay. Like closest to the surface. Okay.
Level 2, human staff housing. People said it's funny because if you don't know there's aliens there and you happen to visit that and you're like, why does that say human staff housing? You know, level 2, human staff housing.
They keep the livestock down below.
Level 3, offices and labs. Level 4, mind experimentation. Level 5, alien housing. Level 6, genetic experimentation, also known as Nightmare Hall. Level 7 is cryogenic storage, and under this is an unknown cave system.
This is just like straight out of the movies.
It is. It gets
weirder.
It gets weirder.
Brace
Thomas
yourselves.
slowly began to sense that there was an underlying current of tension existing between some of the personnel and himself. Once in a while, he would walk around the corner, interrupting serious discussions between coworkers, and as Thomas was a security officer, these talks would quickly die off into a short murmur, and individuals would part company. That happens anywhere.
Sure.
So what are you guys talking about? Nothing. Gotta go.
Bye.
One particular part of his job was to go into various areas of the base and align the security monitoring cameras when it was necessary. This afforded him the opportunity to venture out and witness things that would stagger the imagination. Later, he reported seeing laboratories that investigated all of the following: the human aura, astral or spirit body voyaging and manipulation, psi studies, advanced mind control analysis and application, human brain memory recognition, acquisition and transfer, matter manipulation, human alien embryonic cloning, rapid human body replicating by use of energy/matter transfer, complete with an individual's memory from a computer's memory banks, and other scientific advances. Once in a while, Thomas would see some of the horrifying genetic creations that were being housed in separate sections of the base. These, he knew, couldn't have anything to do with mental illness or health research. Thomas didn't want to look any further. Every time he discovered more pieces to the underground maze, it became more and more overwhelming to accept. His curious mind, however, implored him to search for the truth regardless of his own desire to turn away in horror. One day, Thomas was approached by another employee who ushered him quickly into a side hallway. Here, he was approached by two other gentlemen that whispered the most horrifying words. The men, women, and children that were said to be mentally retarded were in fact heavily sedated victims of abduction. He warned the men that their words and actions could get them in big trouble if he were to turn them in. At this, one man told Thomas that they were observing him and noticed that he was too uncomfortable with what he was witnessing down in the base. They knew that Thomas had a conscience, and they knew that they had found a friend. They were right. Thomas didn't turn them into his commanders. Instead, he made the dangerous decision to quietly speak with one of the caged humans in an area nicknamed Nightmare Hall. Through their drug-induced state, he asked them their name and their hometown. Thomas then discreetly investigated the claim of this so-called insane human during his weekends outside the facility. He discovered through his searching that the person had been declared missing in their hometown after vanishing suddenly, leaving behind their traumatized family, who had followed dead ends and trailed flyers. Soon he discovered that many of the hundreds, perhaps thousands of men, women, and children were actually listed as missing or unexplained disappearances.
That is so horrifying.
And that kind of ties in with missing 411. Some of these people that maybe are disappearing, because a lot of people speculate that a lot of these bases, if they don't want anything built near them and they want them somewhere quiet, they're going to be underneath national parks.
That's disturbing.
It is. Thomas knew that he was in way over his head, and so were several of his coworkers. All he could do until the situation somehow changed was to be alert and extremely guarded with his thoughts, because the gray aliens had telepathic capabilities that allowed them to read the minds or feelings of those around them. Supposedly, they can't read minds, but they can read feelings. Like if you're hiding something and nervous about it, they'll know.
So they're like empaths.
Like highly intuitive empaths. In 1978, tensions within the base were extremely heightened. Several security and lab technicians began to sabotage the genetic experiments. Increasingly frail nerves and paranoia finally erupted in 1979 into what is commonly referred to as, quote, the Dulce War. It was a literal battle between the reptilians and the humans for the control of the base. It was the reptilians more than the humans that were pushing the big lie and insisted on using humans in their experiments, and those who did not survive the experiments were used as sources of liquid protein which fed the embryonic gray fetuses that grew up to be grays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're getting a little out there. We were already out there.
It gets out there.
Oh
that basically they are...
So the reptilians are controlling the base.
The reptilians are the ones in charge. Like the grays are like the workers, and like the people that... The genetic experiments that fail, are used as food. Doing? Are used as food, working with the aliens on these experiments.
We're just like their sidekicks,
I guess. But aliens are said to live off of our glandular secretions.
Well, that's great.
And yeah, so like I said, it's
okay.
this is a lot.
Yeah.
The initial Dulce War conflict began on level 3. No one is exactly sure how it started, but we know through Thomas's accounts that it involved the base security forces armed with beam weapons known as flash guns, machine gun-toting U.S. personnel, and the gray alien species who had apparently tried to turn the base security forces and the U.S. military forces against each other. When the smoke cleared, 68 humans had been killed, 22 were completely vaporized, and 19 escaped via the tunnels. 7 were recaptured, but 12 remain in hiding to this day. Thomas returned to his post, awaiting planning of his own escape. After one of the weekends away from the facility, he decided to return to work, and this is when he took all that stuff. He took all that stuff with him. During his time inside the base, he removed photographs of the facility, treaties signed with authentic signatures between California Governor Ronald Reagan, several other individuals, and the Greys.
I want to know what their signatures look like.
I do too. He also managed to retrieve a 7-minute black and white surveillance video of genetic experiments involving caged humans, Greys, as well as schematics of alien devices and complex genetic formulas. These items he felt were not only his chance to a seat at the bargaining table if the need arose, but they were also things that the public needed to know about. So he made several copies and gave them to his friends in a situation that something happened to him. And that's when he went back to his wife and son, who he found with government agents, and he dipped out and was like, later.
So this reminds me of, have you seen all of the Alien movies?
No.
So there's one later, I think it's maybe the fourth one, Winona Ryder is in it, and Ripley is now a hybrid of a
I did see
human
that
and
one.
an
Yeah.
alien.
Yep.
And there's this part in the movie where they come across like an experimental lab where they were clearly doing genetic experiments,
Yeah.
and there's some really messed up versions of Ripley in
Yeah.
there. That's
and
what I'm
that's kind of what
picturing.
this is. That's kind of what this is like. These people that go missing, they're being experimented on.
Ugh.
Because we at one time supposedly had, this is also going to be a mini mystery. We had a supposed treaty with them that for technology, they could take our people and experiment on them. But we needed a list of who they were experimenting on and what they were doing. So he went up, his wife and kid were being held by government agents, and he went on the run, and it says he quickly dissolved into a lonely life on the run. So there's this interview with him that you can find online in several places, so I'm just going to touch on a couple things that he says in the interview. In one of them, he says, quote, "The subterranean highway in America is like a freeway except it's underground. The highway depends on electronic motors for the paved roads, and it is for limited travel. There is another style of transit for freight and for passengers that is rapid travel. That worldwide network is called the subglobal system. It has checkpoints at each country. There are shuttle tubes that shoot the trains at incredible speeds using a maglev and vacuum method. They travel at a speed that excels the speed of sound. Part of your question involves the location of entrances to that base. The easiest way to answer is to say that every state in the United States has them. Frequently, the entrances are camouflaged as sand quarries or mining operations. Other complex portals are found on military bases. New Mexico and Arizona have the largest amounts of entrances, followed by California, Montana, Idaho, there's more Idaho, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Kansas, Arkansas, and Missouri. Of all the states, Florida and North Dakota have the least amount of entrances. Wyoming has a road that actually opens directly into the subterranean freeway. That road is no longer in use, but could be reactivated if they decide to do so with minimal cost. It's located near Brooks Lake, Wyoming. The interviewer says, "Could you give me more information on the reptilian race? What do they do on the 6th level?" He answers, "The worker caste does the daily chores, mopping the floors, cleaning the cages, bringing food to the hungry people and other species. It is their job to formulate the proper mixture for the Type 1 and Type 2 beings that the Draco race," those are the reptilians, that's the Dracos, the Draco race has created. The working caste work at the labs as well as the computer banks. Basically speaking, the reptilian races are active at all levels of the Dulce base. There are several different races of aliens that work on the east section of level 6. The Greys, the Nordic faction, the Dracos. The humans are second in command of those levels. I had to argue with one of the large Draco bosses frequently. His name is difficult to verbalize. It's pronounced with a throaty kahashfshut. Kahashfshut. I usually just called him Karsh, and he hated it.
Gesundheit.
The draconian leaders are very formal when talking to the human race. These ancient beings consider us a lower race. Karsh called me Leader Costello, but it was used in a sarcastic way. However, the worker caste is friendly enough as long as you allow them to speak first. They will answer if you address them. They are cautious beings and consider most humans to be hostile. They might not be wrong there. Right. They also seemed very surprised when they found that many humans were open and trustworthy. There is no fraternizing with the aliens off hours. It is forbidden to speak to any alien race without a clear business-oriented reason. Humans can talk to humans and alien can speak to alien, but that's as far as it goes. At the work site, it's different. There's free speech in the labs. The camaraderie found in the labs also reaches the computer bank section. In those areas, everybody talks to everybody. However, everything changes the minute you cross the threshold of the hall. Instantly, all conversations become strictly formal. Hard as it was, several times I had to arrest someone simply because they spoke to an alien. It's a strange place. That's an understatement. And then the interviewer asks him, "What's your biggest fear?" And then Costello answers that the general public will forget the trapped innocent people in that despicable place and will ignore the hundreds of children, women, and men added to that place every month. And it is said that Thomas Costello was killed a year after this interview took place. So it sounds like they finally got him. People don't know if he really...
If any
of this is true. People don't know if he exists because...
I don't want to think any of this is true.
No, but...
Right, this could have just been a made-up thing.
Oh my God, it could totally have been a made-up thing.
Yeah.
So now we get
and
to
you
Phil.
Have two more. I was gonna say.
Now we get to Phil Schneider. Phil Schneider's interesting. I've watched a lot of Phil Schneider videos. They're on. He spoke at conventions and stuff. So Phil Schneider was an engineer, a supposedly self-taught geologist, and an explosives expert who said that his job was to figure out what explosives to use and what material to then use to build deep underground military bases. He claimed that the United States had built 130 deep underground military bases since World War II, and he said that he had worked on 13 of them, including the one at Dulce Base. He said that scientists and aliens worked together at Dulce Base.
What's interesting about this is that this is a person who's
That
actually
is there.
speaking
Yeah.
in front of
Yep.
people.
He also claimed to be one of the survivors from the 1979 Dulce War. He said that he was missing toes and fingers that were blown off by an alien weapon known as a flash gun. And in the interviews, he shows it. He has a scar on his chest.
Oh, I thought you meant the gun.
No, he shows his fingers that were blown off by the flash gun. He says, I got shot in the chest with one of their weapons, which was a box on their body that blew a hole in me, opened me like a fish, and gave me a nasty dose of cobalt radiation. I have had cancer because of that. So, from the UFO alien database Wikipedia, it says, quote, Phil came out as a whistleblower in 1994, and it's believed that the reason he did is because his friend and co-publisher of the Alien Digest magazine, Ron Rummel, was found dead from what they determined was suicide, even though a few things about it were kind of suspicious, like the fact that no fingerprints were found on the handle of the handgun. The suicide note was written left-handed while Rummel was right-handed, and there is blowback blood on his hand, but there is no blowback blood on the gun. So that was sketchy. There was some sketchy stuff with his friend's suicide. So people are convinced he was murdered.
Sure.
And this comes up again. So for the next 2 years, Schneider went on the convention and lecture tour to expose some of the things that the government was covering up. He also talked about how his father had been involved with the Philadelphia experiment, which we talked about in an earlier episode. In 1979, Phil Schneider was employed by a company called Morrison Knudsen, and they had him building an addition to a deep underground base in Dulce, New Mexico. 4 holes had been drilled in the desert that were to be linked together with existing tunnels, and Phil's job was to go down into those holes, check rock samples, and recommend what explosives should be used to deal with that kind of rock. Phil said he realized something was up when he noticed how many Special Forces soldiers were there at the time. They just got done drilling the last hole when a strange smell like burning garbage came out of the ground. Phil lowered himself into the hole and found himself face to face with a, quote, 7-foot-tall, stinky gray alien. He pulled his pistol and killed 2 of the aliens, but the rest of the aliens began firing their weapons at him, blowing off some of his fingers with the blue bolts from their weapons, and he took a blast to the chest from a beam weapon, which he said gave him cobalt cancer later in life. He said that a Green Beret that had come down to the cave with him saved him, pushing him back onto the service elevator and sending the elevator back to the surface as the Green Beret was killed by the aliens. It said that 66 humans died that day at the alien-human battle of Dulce Base, and Schneider was one of the only 3 people who survived. After coming out with all of this information in 1994, he began to tell people that he believed he was being followed and monitored. He said that there were 13 attempts on his life after he came out with this information about Dulce Base.
Wow.
He told a good friend of his, quote, if I ever commit suicide, I was murdered.
Okay.
On January 17th, 1996, Schneider was found dead in his Oregon apartment. From the UFO Alien Database Wiki, quote, on January 17th, 1996, Phil Schneider was found dead in his Wilsonville, Oregon apartment. He had apparently been dead for several days. His body was found in what appeared to be an unusual position. His feet were under the bed. His head was in a wheelchair seat at an unusual angle, and the rest of his body was on the floor, hands at his side. Blood was found on the floor near his wheelchair, but no blood was found on his wheelchair or him. No wounds were on his body to account for the blood. No suicide note was ever found. So when they found him, he had been there a while, and it had been very hot, and he was bloaty.
Yeah.
Very, very bloaty. Schneider's death was considered to be caused by a heart attack or a stroke, but
what about the blood,
something
though?
didn't seem right. So they had
Why was there a wheelchair?
because he was in a wheelchair at the time, apparently. Okay. So after he was in the morgue for a little while, they went back and looked, and the bloating had went down, and they found that he had had a catheter tube wrapped around his throat 3 times and knotted in the front.
That's weird. So it was on him.
Yes.
But they couldn't see it because of the bloating.
So this was around his neck 3 times and knotted
in the front
where he was choked.
It.
Where he was supposedly choked.
Right. So he wouldn't have done that to himself.
No. No wounds were on his body to account for the blood. No suicide note was found. His death was said to be caused by heart attack or stroke, but later analysis was the catheter tube. that suggested his death was motivated by strangulation. His ex-wife also noticed that Phil's lecture material and notes for his unwritten book on UFOs were also missing from the apartment, but money and valuables remained untouched. Cynthia was told by Detective Randy Harris that there were marks on his neck. An autopsy report revealed that a rubber hose had been wrapped around his neck 3 times and tied in a knot, which blocked blood flow to his head, resulting in him becoming unconscious and then dying. The official cause was changed to suicide. The medical examiner took blood and urine samples at the autopsy and said that they would save them for when they wanted them checked. But when it came time for his ex-wife to check them, they had been lost.
That's convenient.
So, yeah, it says samples were kept for 12 months. When interested parties asked for these samples a few months later, it said that they were missing and presumed destroyed. His ex-wife said, quote, Philip had missing fingers on his left hand and limited motion in his shoulders. I believe that it was physically impossible for Philip to have held a rubber hose in his left hand with missing fingers and then wrapped the hose 3 times with shoulders that had limited mobility and strangle himself. And he had pills, lots of pills in the house. He had guns. And she is like, why of all the ways would he do this?
Right.
You know, so...
the blood is what's throwing me.
Mark Rufiner, a longtime friend of Phil, said, quote, I saw Phil the weekend of January 6th and 7th, 1996. We were going to buy land in Colorado. We were excited because he was going to hire me and help write a book about his knowledge on UFOs and aliens, about the one world government and the black budget. He did not commit suicide. He was murdered, and it was made to look like a suicide. In the weeks leading up to his death, several friends and witnesses saw him with an unknown pretty blonde-haired woman, and people wonder if she was involved somehow, and several psychics have attempted to make contact with his spirit, and he apparently told them that he was murdered. So these videos are on YouTube if you want to watch like his lecture videos, but it talks about all the stuff that we talked about, that he was in this underground base with these aliens. When his friend was killed, he wanted to come forward and let people know what was going on. And, you know, like one of the podcasts I listened to said that he's obviously an engineer because he's very dry. You know, like listening to him go on and on and on.
I work with engineers, and they are the driest people.
He seems like genuine when he's talking about this stuff, but stuff also changes in his story from time to time.
I always have a problem with that.
So that's really what I got. You know,
I mean, did
maybe
somebody...
I'll post one of the in the Strangers after I post the episode. I'll post one of his lectures that you guys can watch. You know, but
it's
his
weird
lectures,
that there's common threads between these totally different stories.
Part of me wonders if Thomas Costello wasn't Philip Schneider. You know,
or somebody who heard his lectures and was like, I could make up a total backstory.
No, because Thomas Costello was before.
Oh, he was.
So it's like I just don't get it. There's a couple theories. You know, there's Philip Schneider was nuts.
Sure.
Or a compulsive liar.
Just trying to make money off of it.
People that like from other podcasts looked into this and said he was getting like a really good government pension, and you get next to nothing for for going on the UFO circuit tour.
Yeah, what was his motivation if it wasn't true?
Exactly. Is he a compulsive liar? Is he nuts? Is he a disinformation agent that they sent out to, you know, maybe there's military stuff going on at Dulce base and they don't want people looking there, so they send someone out to make it sound as crazy as possible?
His claims weren't as wild as Thomas, though.
No, but they definitely
tie into the same.
Yeah, that he was involved and they shot his, you know, but in some accounts they had like a flash gun that they used to shoot his, and in some accounts there's a box on their chest that the aliens wave their hands in front of, and then it sends a blue beam out. You know,
what if you did that on accident? You're just
I don't know.
People left and
I don't know. But he said that...
it's all a little far-fetched.
I don't remember what the exact number was, but he said that there are currently 11 alien species on Earth or that are involved with Earth. And I think he said 7 of them are good and 4 of them are bad.
And they're all in these underground
like,
bases? Or just wandering around
apparently,
out in the open?
But, you know, some of the stuff did tie in with missing people. You know, it didn't come out and say missing 411, but it said people that go missing from national parks. You know, and they said, if you're going to have one of these underground bases, you know, one of the podcasts I listened to, I wish I wrote her name down, was a lady that wrote a book about hidden military bases. And she says a lot of them are in or bordering national parks where they can do stuff without really being noticed.
Right.
And she says in a lot of these national parks, there are roads that go off that are never used, that are entrances to these bases. Is there one below Point Beach? up by
Never
me.
know. Right.
Like, I don't know. I mean, the thing is that, like, the way this is set up, it goes from factual to kind of crazy. There's obviously
Kinda
underground
crazy.
bases. There's
Yeah, I
obviously
don't doubt
underground
that.
bases.
Yeah.
And what goes on in these underground bases, we don't know.
I could even potentially buy some kind of train system.
Yeah.
I don't know that they go 14,000 miles per hour because that just seems insane.
But what I have a hard time with is thinking that there's all these scientists and stuff working with aliens, and everybody keeps it mostly quiet.
Right.
Someone
hasn't leaked that until now, except these couple of people who are both dead now.
Yeah. And what about these people that died in the Dulce War? Were their families notified? Was it just, like, I don't know.
Is it like when you work at Area 51? Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
So I don't know what I think. But there's a lot of stuff about Dulce Base. Like, Dulce Base is supposedly like a huge alien human base.
I tend to think there's always an ounce of truth in it all.
Yeah.
It's just, this goes off the deep end.
Yeah. So I'm going to end this with a quote from writer Mike Rothschild, who investigated the myth for the skeptical website skeptoid.com.
Like Rothschild? Like
one of the Rothschilds? I don't know. So maybe he's disinformation.
Disinformation.
Yeah, from
right.
skeptoid.com. He says, quote, "There are no real pictures of it." And one of the things is there's this picture floating around that supposedly that shows the aliens in these cryogenic chambers. And it's from a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So
nice try, though.
Yeah, so it's like, nice try. But yeah. So
someone will believe it.
So this Mike Rothschild says, quote, "There are no real pictures of it. There's no physical evidence of roads or vents or doors or anything of the sort. Even though tens of thousands of people must have been involved in the building, staffing, and guarding the base, no one has ever claimed with any credibility to have worked there or that their family member or friend was killed in a shootout or experimented upon. I can't conclusively prove that Dulce Base doesn't exist, but nobody can conclusively prove that it does. Until that proof emerges from the ground, Dulce Base will remain a strange story created by troubled dreamers and not a house of alien horrors."
I mean, I can get behind all of that.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just like when you watch these videos and apparently this Phil Schneider was friends with Al Bielek, who was the one on the Philadelphia experiment that was said to go back in time to when he was a child and then raised with a different family. So it's like
all these crazy claims.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I just don't want. It seems so hokey and dumb.
It's a bad sci-fi movie.
It's a bad sci-fi movie. But what if it's real? I mean,
that's horrifying to think
about. It is horrifying to think about. But
this
what
is
if
going on right under our noses?
Like a lot of people say, what if aliens have always been here underground and they don't come from the sky? They come from below us.
I could buy that.
I could buy that too. There's a lot of weird stuff with caves.
Yeah.
Like the cave system. So I don't know. So there you go. There is deep underground military bases, Phil Schneider, and
that was a lot.
Dulce Base. Yeah. And I said those three could have been each. Like, I could have went into a lot more.
Oh, sure.
One of the things, I wasn't going to get into this, but one of the things from the autopsy of Phil Schneider. So if you got any strangelings, you might want to cup your hands over their ears for the next minute or so. But his ex-wife said that one of the red flags was that his autopsy report said that his penis was, quote, unremarkable. So,
which that's not true.
Most are. And she says that they obviously didn't look at it because apparently when he was in the Vietnam War, he was near a landmine that went off. And the quote was that the bottom of his penis was split open like a hot dog bun.
Oh, that sounds horrifying.
So she said that he always had a problem with that it had this huge opening, that it was slit on the bottom. And then she said,
stitch it back up?
They did, but,
I guess
it's stitched. It's going to look like a football.
Right.
Right. So they said,
not just your basic circumcision scar.
No, but I guess it was pretty noticeable that had happened. And then when the autopsy report said it was unremarkable, she's like, they obviously didn't look.
So is she almost claiming that wasn't her husband?
No, she's claiming that they falsified everything.
Okay.
It's hard to get a grasp on her because from stories that Phil Schneider said, she was a badass just like him, where somebody was going to kill him, but then she had a gun to that person's head.
Dang.
And stuff like that. So,
Okay.
but she says that shows that they didn't really do an autopsy, that he was murdered, and that they know he was murdered. And I'm not going to lie, his death is fishy.
It's very suspicious.
But people are like, why would you kill yourself like that? And the thing is, if you're so delusional that you want people to think you were murdered, to be shut up, would you arrange a messy suicide to make it look like you were murdered so your legacy would continue? That people would be like, see, he was obviously murdered. He didn't kill himself.
Right.
So if you were going to kill yourself, would you do it would you come up with such a way that it would look like you were murdered?
But why would you kill yourself?
Maybe he was in a lot of pain. He had this cancer. He had, I don't remember if it was MS or something, but he had something else too, that he was in a lot of pain. And he blames all of that from that beam that hit his chest.
The blood still throws me. If there was blood at the scene and there was no source, I don't get that.
So, people speculate that he managed to injure whoever it was that was killing him, and that's where the blood came from.
That makes sense.
But so much of this comes from secondhand sources, and a lot of this changes from story to story that I read, and it's hard to get a firm grasp on it, but this is like the bare bones version of it.
Okay.
So...
out there, man.
It's out there.
It's out there.
Is stuff like the Philadelphia experiment, Dulce Base, is that stuff true?
I hope not.
I'm
sure to some degree there's truth, like I said.
But this made me wonder, what did my dad do?
Right.
Did my dad know about this stuff? Did he help build these bases? If he was the one that helped drill the hole underneath the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., he had high security clearance. So
he was at Area 51.
Yeah. So was he doing stuff like this?
Would love to know.
So would Corey and I.
We could do a whole series
Corey
on
says
your dad.
that he has those forms, the Freedom of Information Act, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get anything.
Yeah, that's true. They'll give you
but there's the thing that he
stuff.
told my aunt. My aunt told me that he told her one time, he said, when people ask what I do, I tell them I'm a driller for the Corps of Engineers, but I do so much more than that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did he know about this stuff? Was this stuff my dad did? I don't know.
And that, like you said, even if Corey did file that, you're just going to get it's all going to be, what do they call that? Redacted. He'll get a bunch of stuff where like there's 3 words on it because everything else is blacked out.
It's all blacked out. So I don't know. So what do you guys think? Dulce Base, Phil Schneider. I'm going to put one of the videos up in the group that you'll be able to watch it. I think it's like a little over an hour long. I don't know. Some of this stuff is just out there.
Yeah.
But,
some of it, most of it's out there.
Look at the QAnon stuff. A lot of people buy into the QAnon stuff.
What's QAnon stuff?
Oh,
Have we talked about that?
That's a whole different political topic. We're not going to discuss that.
Okay.
But that's like crazy conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah.
And that's stuff like that the pedophilic elite are killing babies and drinking the adrenochrome or whatever that was from the babies. But that kind of ties in with this, where they said that the aliens live off like the glandular secretions. And it said that in one of the levels of Dulce Base, there's almost like all the blood and glandular matter goes into this tub that the aliens soak in, almost like a hot tub. And that revitalizes them. So,
I just don't buy this stuff.
So there you go. What do you guys think? Dulce Base? Yay? Nay? Bad sci-fi movie?
Bad sci-fi movie.
So, okay, now what do we do? Questions?
Yeah, let's do some questions, and then we have our songs.
Yep. Time is it?
Hour and 35 minutes.
Okay.
Do I do a pickle joke?
Sure.
While you're looking up questions. All right. Oh, I did this one last time. What's red and green?
What?
A sunburned pickle. Come on. These are always good. Laugh out loud jokes for kids. What is a duck on the 4th of July?
What?
A firecracker. See, that's at least cute.
That is at least cute.
And it makes sense. Did you find our questions?
I can't get the site to work.
Oh. Is it because we're in a deep underground base?
We are in our
Wi-Fi
we should have
down
called
here?
this our deep underground military recording studio. I can't get it. I cannot get our site to load with our questions, which annoys me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll give two questions. One of the one is one we need to think about before next time because I forgot to tell you it last time.
Okay.
But one of the questions I remember seeing was, which of the stories that we have done that is bizarre do you think is the most likely to be true?
Oh yeah, I'd have to look back.
Like this one,
I
I
can't
don't
remember
know.
what we talked about like 2 episodes ago.
The one that I like my bet sphere. Like I feel like there's so much. I feel like there's a lot of
Actual evidence.
Evidence that the bet sphere existed and that it was something unique.
Like photos.
Yeah, like photos of
Actual
it and
photos?
stories of people who interacted with it. So that one, I think it's a crazy story, but I think that one is very
Plausible.
I really
Yeah.
do. I mean, that's one of the ones.
I'm gonna go with Bigfoot.
I figured you go with Bigfoot. You know, stuff like this, stuff like the Philadelphia experiment and Dulce Base, stuff like that fascinates me, but it's just hard to buy into
It's
it.
just so overboard.
It's overboard, and there's just so this guy took all these videos and footage and stuff. Where is it?
Yeah, where are they?
There's supposedly videos and pictures, but they look so fake that you can find online
okay.
and stuff like that.
Somebody just Photoshop something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those, I think, I don't know. I don't buy these because they're too. I don't get the reasoning behind why somebody is spouting the stories, but I think they're too far out there. But ones like the Bet Sphere, I can 100% get behind.
Me too.
Bigfoot, I can get behind because there's been enough people that have
Some experience, some encounter.
ghosts. I 100% get behind because of the experiences you and I had. But as far as like the one that's the craziest that we could buy into,
Yeah, I guess craziest. Bigfoot's not that crazy.
missing 411 is crazy.
It is. Yeah, and I'm totally behind that.
I'm totally behind that too. But then I was, a lot of people brought up when I was researching this stuff that how many, like one of the big things is how many children go missing every year. And skeptics say what you have to realize is that, say your 5-year-old neighbor down the block runs away. They call the cops, and then 2 hours later he's found. That stays on the report as a missing child.
Oh, really?
Yes, that a lot of people. That all these missing children
have
and
actually
stuff
been found.
have actually been found, and that there's only a small number of children.
I'd like to believe that.
I'd like to believe that too.
Jeez.
But I don't know. That was the question: is which of your stories that's 100% crazy is the one that you can buy into?
Yeah, maybe I don't know that I can definitively answer that.
No, so that might be one to think of for next. And another one to think of for next time is somebody asked us, because that's one I saw last time. What was the funniest or most interesting experience you had at work in your life? So that's something I'm going to have to think about.
Yeah, I want to think about it.
Yeah. So I'm just
Funniest
annoyed.
or most experience I've had at work. Okay.
I'm just annoyed that I cannot get our website to work. See, I'm getting a connection timed out. It's just not connecting to that website.
Huh. But you can get on like Facebook and
I can get on everything else.
Then it's the website.
But it's just our website is down. I think it's the government. They know what we're doing. They're trying to shut us down. We know all about Dulce Base and
Dulce Base.
Shush, 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 whatever his name was, the
Shushushka.
alien.
Shish kebab. Shakshuka.
Kebab.
Like I've never worked in a haunted location or anything like that.
Yeah.
Although I have heard some people say the building I work in is haunted, but I've never seen any evidence of that. I did actually think of something. Well, we'll save it for the next episode.
No, we can do it now.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Do you have a story you can tell? And when I say working, I was a babysitter. So I technically was earning money. So I was on the job, and it was something really weird that happened to me when I was babysitting once. Do you want me to tell the story? So in my little village where I grew up, which BDZ is moving
Oh yeah,
to my hometown, which is like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, who would move there? Which I didn't live in the town she's moving to. I went to like grade school, high school, etc. there. I grew up in a village just outside of there, but just down the road from our house, I was babysitting, and the kids were in bed. They were sleeping. I was lying on the couch watching a scary old like black and white movie, and the parents were gone, obviously. And I heard what sounded like somebody dropping a tool in the garage.
Oh, I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I heard the clang of the tool hit like the concrete floor, and I thought I heard a man swear. And that was all I heard. I was too afraid. Great babysitter.
Well,
I should have investigated what that was, but I didn't. I just laid there and pretended to be sleeping until the parents came home. I didn't say anything. Because I thought they would have thought I was nuts. And B, I was too afraid to go and look and see what it was. And
Yeah.
I think back to that and think, was there a person in the garage, or was that like a paranormal thing that happened?
I'm guessing there was a person in the garage, which
I
is
don't know,
I would
we're
rather
out in
have
the
it be
middle of
paranormal.
nowhere. Yeah, I mean, we're out in
Because
the
if there's
middle
somebody,
of the
if you're
country.
out there alone and there's somebody in the garage.
Well, what's weird is they made so much noise in that one moment, but I never heard anything else. It's not like if there was a person, they weren't trying to be quiet. They were dropping stuff and swearing loudly over it. Why would they? I never hear another noise then. That's what made me question if it was an actual person.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't think of anything crazy that's ever happened.
I don't know if it had
working.
to be paranormal, but if we're going to do paranormal, I talked about this on here before where I was at the factory at where I worked with April, my friend April, who was running one machine and I was running one machine. And, we're just both looking in our machine. She's running her machine and I'm looking in mine and watching the rings load. And then I hear her say my name and I could tell by the way she said my name, something had happened. And I turn around and she was just white. And she's like, "Did you see that?" And I said, "No, I was looking at my machine." And that's when she said she turned around and she said over her and I in our area was this black pulsating cloud. And she said when she looked up, it was like it knew she looked up. And she said it went moving and sped around the corner.
Oh, it's so freaky.
And went away. And she was shook. And April did not shake easily. She was like your tough as nails girl. And she was freaked out. And
so did anything bad happen around that time?
I don't think so.
It seems
but
like
it was
a bad
right around
omen,
that time where her and her husband went out to Cato Falls. And Cato Falls is creepy.
Okay.
Have you been to Cato?
Heard about, I haven't been there, but I've heard about it.
It's like, I don't know. It's like even when you're
not
there,
right.
It's not right. Like there's something there. And her and her husband went out there fishing and they said they felt weird. They felt like they were being watched.
Before or after that? Before?
It was right around the time.
Okay.
I don't remember where they were being watched and
like maybe something followed her back.
And no, I think it would. I think this was maybe, I don't know, but she said they felt they were being watched and they went home and they were sitting on the couch watching a movie that night. And she said she looked over by the bathroom, the hallway, the lights were off. And it looked like somebody was standing in her bathroom door and she nudged her husband and he looked and he got up and he's like, "Who is that?" And all of a sudden they were gone.
I got the chills.
All of a sudden they were gone. And it was right around the time that this happened. So it was like, but she was, like I said, she was not faking it. She saw something. And she said it was this black cloud that like hovered over her and I in our department and then vanished around the corner. So that's my weird
freaky.
work one. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, there you go.
I guess we answered the question.
Yeah. When I still can't get the site to load, but I opened up like a random question site and like the first one that came up, it said, "What would be the worst thing to hear is you're going under anesthesia before heart surgery?"
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know.
The worst thing to hear before you were going
would be
under
the doctor
anesthesia?
going, "Now how do I do this?"
Yeah.
That was the first thing that popped in my head.
Can you add a little more vodka to my soda?
Yeah, that. So yeah, sorry I can't get our question site to load, but I'll
maybe try to do it later.
Copy and paste them. Yeah,
do some screenshots or something.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to do your song?
Yes, our theme for this week was a song that reminds us of a very specific time or place. And I could have talked about this on here already. I don't remember. I'm starting to like blend with what songs we've mentioned and what songs we haven't.
Same.
But this is a really personal one to me, and this is from the 80s. And you can let me know if this sounds familiar, but it was a summer night, and I want to say it was around 1988. Like the year I graduated. My friends were coming to pick me up and we were going to the Manitowoc County Fair. And it was just like a simple thing. Like I was sitting down, we were living with my grandma at the time, and I was sitting down in the chair in the hallway by the front door waiting for them to come and get me. And I had my old school Walkman on with the old chunky Walkman.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the song that at the time was one of my favorite songs. And it is the song "If We Never Meet Again" by Tommy Conwell and the Young Rumblers. It was like a real minor 80s hit.
Okay.
It was played on the radio a couple times and went nowhere. But I still love the song. But that song reminds me, I was sitting there in the chair waiting for my friends to come and get me. And I'm listening to the song. And she had one of those windows along the side of the door, and the sun was starting to lower, so the sunbeam was coming in, and there were dust particles floating in it. And I just remember being so content. My friends were coming to get me that mean the world to me and still mean the world to me. Like Jim Ollick, he listens to this, he'll hear this. But they were coming to pick me up, and I'm listening to this song, waiting for my friends to show up, and I was just completely happy. So when I hear that song, it reminds me of that moment.
My story is exactly the same type of story
it's just
like that.
It's not even an exciting scenario. It's me sitting in this chair watching the dust in the sun coming through the window, knowing that I had my whole life before me.
Yep.
You know, I still was happy. So that's my moment, is that song. And whenever I hear that song, it brings me back to that moment of waiting for my friends to pick me up to take me to the county fair.
Nice.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah, mine is similar. I mean, not the scenario, just the feeling. This is maybe 15 years ago. My friend Jill and I were going to go. So there's a couple of bands involved here, but there was a band that's from Minnesota that did a lot of touring in Wisconsin called The Big Woo.
I've heard of The Big Woo.
And we were big fans. Like, we went to see them everywhere all the time. Like, we were always going to see The Big Woo. They had really good original music. And so they had this long weekend festival, like probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, called the Big Woo Family Reunion. And it was at a campground in Minnesota. And it was just camping and music all weekend long. And so we were going for the first time together, my friend Jill and I. I don't know where Jim was. And I think other people met us there, but this night before, I just have this memory of us. So now back to a different scenario. This is the night before we were leaving. We went to see a band at a venue in Milwaukee called Shank Hall. And we'd seen many bands at Shank Hall.
Shank Hall was like a big concert place.
Yeah, but it's small. It's a really small venue, actually. And the band that we were going to see, you could never see at Shank Hall anymore. They sell out like big arenas now, and they're called Humphreys McGee. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yes, I've heard of them.
So we went to see Humphreys at Shank Hall, and they were going to be at the Big Woo Family Reunion too. So we're like, we'll get a twofer. We'll see them at Shank Hall.
And then see them at the Big Woo.
And it was just like this night of anticipation of the weekend that was coming. Jill's like one of my favorite people in the world. We've been to so many shows together. And they did a cover of Paul Simon's Late in the Evening that just... There's a line in the song that says, I blew that room away. That's exactly what it was, because they had the most amazing sound. They had the horn section. They had everything. Like, this band is, like, stellar.
Yeah.
And that moment of just that song and being so impressed by them, it was the first time I think I had seen them live. And that moment of just like, oh, we're so happy. We're about to go to this music festival together. And
it is a lot like mine.
It was like the perfect moment, the perfect weekend. It wasn't really about the song. It's a great song. It was just that moment.
That moment in time.
Yeah, not a care in the world.
Yes, and that's exactly what mine was. Not a care. Knowing that I was going to be with my friends. Yeah, that's cool. We both kind of had the same theme.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, awesome.
Weird side note, when we got to the Big Woo Family Reunion the next day, we pulled into a parking space, a.k.a. a huge field where a bunch of people were being told to park. And my friend Jason, who I didn't even know was coming, pulled up right next to us. Like, I didn't even know he was going to be there. He didn't know I was going to be there. He parked right next to us. We looked at each other. We're like, what are you doing here? And we ended up camping together the whole weekend. And then him and Jill ended up dating, actually. So that started like a whole thing. But yeah, it was just like this crazy, amazing, perfect weekend.
That's cool.
That started with a cover of that song.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. I like that story.
Fun stuff.
Cool.
It's odd for me to have a song that reminds me of one specific time, because when I listen to music, I've been listening to it probably for years. And so I have a lot of memories associated with it. But to have a song that always brings one very specific memory was hard for me to come up with. But
it was easy for me because this is always like a thing. This is
the
like
one song.
Yeah. And like I said, that's a really personal moment for me. So that might even be the first time I told anybody about that.
I've never heard that
And it's
story.
just dumb because it's nothing.
It's not dumb.
It's nothing great, but it's just this little moment. Like one of those moments when you have when you're younger where you're like, God, I'm happy to be alive. I got my whole life ahead of me. You know.
Yeah. Perfect contentment.
Like I said, just seeing the sun coming through the window and watching the dust dance in the sunlight. And it's like, ugh.
Knowing you had a fun night ahead of you.
Yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, that was my moment. And like I said, nobody probably remembers the song, but I love the song. It's a good song. So, but it's very 80s, you know.
Yeah.
But we'll post
them.
these. Ooh.
That's a goocher.
That was a goocher. So I think that's it. Oh,
we're approaching 2 hours, so I hope so.
Well, how long have we got?
An hour and 52 minutes.
Oh my God. I'm going to run through the deets.
The deets.
Email us at thestrangesessions@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Strange Session without the S. Krista does a fantastical job on Instagram at The Strange Sessions. Send us postcards and snail mail to The Strange Sessions, P.O. Box 434, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, 54221-0434. And you can call our phone number, 920-443-9603. 2.
You're like the disclaimer guy in the commercials.
Side
Reads the
effects
fine
may
print.
include.
Don't take this if you're allergic to it.
Yeah. And like it's always like, how are you going to know you're allergic to it if
Until
you didn't
you
already
take it.
take it and
Yeah, I
find
don't
out?
know.
Anyway,
It's crazy.
so I think that's it for today. Sorry, it was kind of a thrown together episode. I wanted to have more about Phil Schneider, but I felt like it was getting so long. So we might do a deeper dive on Phil Schneider at some time.
That'd be cool.
But some crazy stuff.
I'll say.
So we should have called this our deep underground military base. But oh well. I still like Strange Cellar.
Yeah, I dig the
I'm
Strange
partial to
Cellar.
Strange Cellar. So next time Corey will be joining us, he's going to
Sweet.
bring a mini mystery, and I
Cool.
think Krista and I might do mini mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're going to revisit something?
Yes.
I have just a weird little story that I want to bring up, so we're going to talk about that.
I'm going to do an update to an episode from our very first season.
Way back, and Corey's going to join you on that
Yeah.
because Corey watched that with
Good.
you and I didn't. But I'm going to bring you something that I read about on the kind of sketchy Crazy Days and Crazy Nights website. That's kind of like a gossip website.
Okay.
But they had a story on there that I thought was interesting. I don't know if I 100% buy it, but I'm going to bring it up and talk about it.
Sweet.
So that's coming up next time, and I think that's it.
I think so.
From Krista and I in the Strange Cellar, until next time,
Stay strange.